The Galactic Mockery. The grandest event in the galaxy was underway, the Galactic Summit. Leaders and representatives from hundreds of species filled the Grand Hall, each eager to show off their latest achievements. The room buzzed with excitement as alien dignitaries traded stories of their technological advancements, military conquests, and discoveries. The air was thick with the scent of alien perfumes and the soft hum of different languages being spoken in harmony. At the center of it all stood a small delegation from Earth, led by Commander James Arnold, a veteran military officer who had earned his place among the galaxy's finest. His team was composed of scientists, engineers, and military experts, all there to showcase something humanity had kept hidden for years. Commander Arnold stepped forward to address the crowd. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice steady and confident. "Today we present something that humanity has built, a relic from our past, but one that still holds power like nothing you've seen before." The crowd fell silent, curious about what the humans were about to reveal. The other species, accustomed to the most advanced technology in the galaxy, couldn't imagine what the humans might have to offer. Some looked at each other with raised eyebrows, skeptical of what Earth could bring to such an important summit. Arnold stepped aside, signaling for the massive tarpaulin-covered object behind him to be unveiled. The cover slowly pulled away, and there, standing before the council, was a tank, rusty, old, and seemingly a relic of a bygone era. Its treads were covered in dirt and grime, and its hull showed signs of wear. It looked like something from an ancient battlefield, more like a museum exhibit than a weapon of war. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some aliens covered their mouths in disbelief, while others openly laughed. The humans had presented this ancient war machine, as a symbol of their strength. It was hard to imagine that something so outdated could even function, let alone pose a threat. "Is this some kind of joke?" A sharp voice came from the back of the room. It was Krovik, a tall and imposing representative from the Zorlek Empire. His species was known for its advanced weaponry, capable of obliterating entire fleets with a single shot. He couldn't believe his eyes. Commander Arnold stood tall, his face a picture of calm as the laughter continued. "It may look like a relic, but appearances can be deceiving," he said. "This tank has been restored and retrofitted with technology that you cannot begin to imagine." The laughter died down a little, but many of the alien leaders still snickered behind their hands. They looked at each other, whispering amongst themselves. "An old tank. Is that what they have to offer?" One of them muttered. "We should have known they couldn't keep up." One by one, the alien leaders stood and made their remarks. "This is hardly the threat we feared," said Leela, the young leader from the peaceful Etherian Republic, shaking her head. "A simple relic from a war long past, hardly a weapon worth our time." Arnold, unfazed by the mocking tone, nodded slowly. "I understand your skepticism, but I assure you, this is not just a relic. It's a weapon of humanity's past that we've kept hidden from the galaxy. What you see before you is the result of human ingenuity." The tank, which had been silent until now, suddenly emitted a faint low hum. Some of the alien leaders froze. The sound was strange, almost mechanical, as if the machine was awakening from a long slumber. "Impossible," muttered Trovik, an alien from the Signar Dominion, as he studied the tank with widened eyes. His species had a deep understanding of technology, and the tank's hum was unmistakably a sign that it was starting up. But no one had the slightest clue of the power it truly held. The tank appeared old, but its design was like nothing they had seen before. The human engineers had spent years secretly upgrading it, blending the old and the new in ways that even the most advanced species couldn't have anticipated. "Let me show you its true power," Arnold said. He turned to his engineers, signaling them to initiate the next phase of the demonstration. The tank, which had remained stationary, suddenly began to stir. The alien laughter was replaced by uneasy glances as the tank's turret slowly turned, its massive barrel pointing toward the ceiling. "What is it doing?" asked Trovik, his voice edged with concern. The human stood calmly as the tank's engines began to warm up, making a low, rumbling sound that reverberated through the hall. The massive vehicle's metal surface seemed to glow, and its turret shifted, pointing in the direction of the Zorlek Empire representative. "I told you, it's not just any relic," Arnold said, his voice low and steady. "It's alive, in a sense, and its fury is unmatched." As the tank slowly came to life, the alien leaders stopped laughing. The machine's energy began to crackle as though it were waiting to be unleashed. A chilling sense of anticipation filled the room. The once dominant laughter of the aliens had turned into murmurs of concern, yet no one dared to speak louder than a whisper. It wasn't just an old tank. The humans were about to show the galaxy something far more dangerous: the awakening. The tension in the air thickened as the tank continued to power up, its mechanical hum growing louder with each passing second. The once mocking whispers from the alien leaders had dwindled to stunned silence. The space around the massive relic seemed to pulse with energy, and for the first time, the room's attention was entirely focused on the simple, rusted machine. The human engineers stepped back, their faces betraying a small glimmer of pride. Commander Arnold, standing tall with his hands clasped behind his back, surveyed the room. His eyes locked onto the alien representatives, their expressions ranging from confusion to outright fear. "Do you hear that?" Commander Arnold's voice rang out, cutting through the silence. His tone was steady, but there was a certain finality in it. "That is the sound of something you haven't experienced before. That is the sound of humanity's resilience, and it is no joke." The tank's treads slowly turned, grinding against the smooth floor, and it started moving. It was slow at first, as though testing its surroundings, but with each movement, its power became more evident. The turret swiveled, aiming at a spot in the far corner of the room. It wasn't aimed at anything specific, just a space that was open. "Why is it moving? It looks like it's about to break down." Krovak, the Zorlek representative, sneered, but his voice wavered slightly. The pride in his species was hard to ignore, but now, a hint of doubt began to creep into his words. Commander Arnold didn't respond immediately. Instead, he gestured for his engineers to continue the demonstration. The next phase was ready. The tank's massive turret, which had been moving slowly at first, suddenly snapped into place. It pointed directly at the ceiling, before turning slightly. And then, in one smooth motion, it fired. The sound was deafening. The noise of the weapon's discharge echoed through the room, and the force of it caused the walls to vibrate. A powerful beam shot from the barrel, slamming into the ceiling above, causing dust and debris to rain down. The blast wasn't just loud. It was overwhelming, shaking everyone to the core. The shockwave sent a ripple of fear through the alien representatives as their eyes widened in disbelief. For a moment, there was no sound. Only the reverberating echo of the blast filled the room, hanging in the air like a warning. Then, one by one, the alien leaders began to react. Layla, the representative from the Aetherian Republic, took a step back, her expression one of genuine shock. Even Trovak, the stoic leader of the Signar Dominion, was visibly shaken. "That's impossible," muttered Trovak under his breath. "No relic should have that kind of power. Not even a millennia-old war machine." Commander Arnold smiled inwardly at the reaction, but remained outwardly calm. "It's not just any relic," he said again, his voice carrying the hint of pride. "We've kept it hidden for a reason. Humanity's ingenuity can bring life to the forgotten, and this tank is proof of that." He motioned toward the tank again, and the engineers began inputting more commands. The tank's energy grew, and now, its movements were far more deliberate and precise. It turned, its massive barrel swaying slowly but with purpose. The hull of the tank shimmered faintly, its aged surface now gleaming under the bright lights of the summit hall. Krovek, whose earlier mockery had now turned to apprehension, stepped forward. His voice, once full of arrogance, was now filled with a mixture of uncertainty and growing fear. Explain to us, humans, how this ancient relic can be so powerful. We've seen machines of war, but nothing like this. Nothing that could cause such destruction. Arnold locked eyes with Krovek, his gaze steady and unwavering. We've added modern technology to it, yes, but this tank is more than just its metal and parts. It's a symbol of humanity's drive, our ability to adapt, to overcome, and to surprise those who underestimate us. For a brief moment, there was a flicker of something in the eyes of the alien representatives, a realization that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity was not as small or insignificant as they had believed. The tank was not just a machine. It was a statement, one that made the galaxy rethink its assumptions. Suddenly, the tank's treads roared to life, propelling it forward with alarming speed. The room, once full of mockery and derision, was now filled with an uneasy quiet. The old tank, whose rusted exterior seemed like a relic from another age, was no longer the object of ridicule. It was a force to be reckoned with. The very ground beneath it seemed to tremble with its raw power. With every movement, the alien leaders couldn't help but feel that they were witnessing something monumental. It was no longer about the tank itself. It was about the message it sent. Humanity had something more powerful than just weapons. They had the will to fight, to stand tall in the face of ridicule, and to rise from the past with a vengeance. For the first time, a collective sense of unease washed over the council. The humans were no longer the underdogs. In this room, in this moment, they were the ones in control. The tank stopped. Its engines hummed steadily, and the turret slowly turned toward the representatives once more. Everyone stood in awe, realizing that the humans had brought something to the table that none of them had anticipated. A relic that had come to life with a power that no one, not even the most advanced species, could ignore. And in that silence, Commander Arnold's words echoed through the room once more. This is just the beginning. The test of power. As the tank's massive turret settled into place, every eye in the room was fixed on it. The silence that had followed the test shot was now filled with an air of disbelief. The alien leaders, who had once scoffed at humanity's reliance on ancient relics, could no longer pretend to dismiss the threat before them. This machine, despite its age, was proving to be far more than just a relic. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, and it seemed to be just getting started. Commander Arnold's confident posture remained unchanged, though there was a subtle smile playing at the corners of his lips. The moment of victory was not yet complete. There was one more thing to show. "Prepare yourselves," Arnold said, his voice cutting through the growing tension in the air. "This is the true power of humanity. Watch closely." At his command, the engineers began activating another function. The tank's hull, once dull and weathered by the passage of time, began to shimmer. The old rusted surface seemed to almost come alive as new systems powered up, and hidden weapons that had been long dormant were now reawakening. The tank's turret spun slightly, its targeting systems adjusting with frightening accuracy. The alien representatives shifted uneasily in their seats. What had started as a mockery of the human war machine had now become something far more intimidating, a force of nature that could not be ignored. Commander Arnold stood tall, his gaze unwavering. He motioned to the alien leaders. "Let's see how you respond to this." With another command, the tank unleashed a barrage of fire. The blast was deafening, shaking the entire hall. The explosion sent shockwaves through the room, rattling the windows and throwing dust into the air. When the smoke cleared, the alien delegates were left staring at the crater that now mirrored the once pristine floor of the summit hall. The blast was so powerful that it seemed to have taken the very ground beneath it with it. The floor was now a smoldering, blackened pit, evidence of the sheer destructive power of humanity's seemingly outdated war machine. Krovak, the Zorlak representative who had been the most vocal in his earlier dismissal of humanity's strength, stood frozen in place. His mouth was slightly agape, and his usual arrogance had been replaced with a look of genuine fear. The once smug look on his face was now gone, replaced with the understanding that the humans were not as weak as they had once thought. The other leaders shared similar expressions, their disbelief now turning to realization. The Aetherian representative, Leela, leaned forward in her seat, her brow furrowed as she tried to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. Impossible, she muttered under her breath, her voice barely audible over the hum of the tank. This isn't just a war machine, Arnold said, his voice quiet but firm. It's a symbol of what humanity is capable of, our creativity, our ingenuity, and our relentless pursuit of survival. The tank, which had now powered down, stood silent but imposing, the smoke of its blast still lingering in the air. Arnold turned toward the alien leaders, his expression softening slightly. You wanted to see the power of humanity, and now you have. For a moment, there was no response. The alien leaders were too stunned to speak, too shaken by the raw power of what they had just witnessed. The silence stretched on, heavy and oppressive, until Trovac, the Signer Dominion leader, finally broke it. You humans, you'd never cease to surprise, he said, his voice low and reluctant. But this is only one machine. What do you intend to do with it? Are you planning to wage war on the entire galaxy? Commander Arnold's gaze never wavered. We fight only when provoked, he said firmly. But rest assured, if you make the mistake of underestimating us again, this relic will be the least of your worries. The room fell silent once again, but this time, the silence was filled with something more than disbelief. It was filled with the realization that humanity had just shown the galaxy something it could no longer ignore. The mockery of the so-called Relic tank had turned into a moment of reckoning. No longer were the humans the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the alien leaders slowly turned their eyes from the tank back to Commander Arnold, they knew something had shifted. The balance of power in the galaxy was no longer what it had once been. Humanity had just demonstrated that they were not to be underestimated. And in that moment, the future of the galaxy seemed uncertain. The tank, once dismissed as a relic, had now become a symbol of humanity's power. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The unseen threat. The alien leaders were still recovering from the shock of humanity's unexpected demonstration. The room was filled with murmurs and hushed conversations, but one thing was clear: nothing was the same anymore. The smug confidence that had once filled the chamber now felt like a distant memory. The gravity of what they had just witnessed was beginning to set in. Commander Arnold stood at the center of the room, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension that seemed to weigh heavily on everyone else. His hand rested on the controls of the tank, which had powered down, its enormous frame now quiet and still. Yet the power that lay within it was unmistakable, lingering in the air like a dark promise. The alien representatives exchanged uneasy glances. Some had begun to understand the magnitude of the situation. Others were still trying to process what had happened. But none of them could deny the truth. Humanity, with its so-called relic tank, had just proven that it was a force to be reckoned with. Trovac, the Zorlak leader, had recovered somewhat from his initial shock, but his face was still pale. He stood up slowly, his voice cautious. This is not a machine of the past. This is a weapon of unimaginable power. And if this is what humanity has, then what else is hidden from us? Commander Arnold's eyes narrowed slightly. What you saw today is only a fraction of what humanity is capable of, he said, his tone even but firm. And what you have learned here is just the beginning. The alien leaders exchanged looks, uncertainty filling their eyes. It was clear that the demonstration had shaken them to their core, but there was still a part of them that couldn't accept it. How could a species so young, so primitive, wield such advanced technology? They had believed they knew everything about humanity, but this moment was forcing them to confront the uncomfortable reality that they had underestimated their power. Leela, the Aetherian representative, who had once spoken so condescendingly about humanity's capabilities, now looked conflicted. Her usual grace had been replaced with a tense unease. "What do you want from us, Commander?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with caution. "Do you intend to use this power to control us, to dominate the galaxy?" Commander Arnold's eyes met hers with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "We seek peace," he said simply. "But we will not allow ourselves to be pushed around, not by anyone. If we are to coexist, it will be on equal terms." For the first time, the alien leaders were not sure how to respond. The power that humanity had just revealed was not just technological. It was also a symbol of their determination and resolve. It was not a power to be used recklessly, but it was a power that could not be ignored. The room fell silent as the weight of Arnold's words settled in. But the silence didn't last long. It was broken by the sound of footsteps. The lone figure emerged from the shadows. An unfamiliar face, but one that held the attention of every alien leader in the room. It was a human, but not one of the soldiers or commanders. This was a scientist, one of the minds behind the creation of the tank. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Carter, and she had been working on the tank for years, hidden away in humanity's most secret research facilities. She was the one who had helped breathe life into the machine, who had designed its advanced weaponry, and who had pushed the limits of what was possible with human technology. "I believe it's time you understand the full scope of humanity's potential," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady and confident. "This tank is only a small piece of what we've accomplished. The true power of humanity lies not just in our machines, but in our minds. We can create, we can innovate, and we can adapt. And when we are threatened, we can unleash forces you can't even begin to comprehend." She stepped forward, her eyes scanning the room of alien leaders, each one now visibly tense. "You mocked our past, our relics, but the truth is, they're the foundation upon which we build our future. And if you continue to dismiss us, if you continue to challenge us, you will regret it." The alien representatives exchanged anxious looks, but no one spoke. The tension in the room was palpable. They had seen the power of humanity's war machine, but now they were being confronted with the true nature of humanity itself. They had underestimated both the technology and the determination of this species, and they were beginning to realize that the cost of that mistake could be more than they were willing to pay. Commander Arnold stepped forward, standing beside Dr. Carter. "We didn't come here to threaten anyone," he said. "We came to show you that humanity is not to be ignored. And if we are forced into conflict, we will fight with everything we have. You have seen what we can do with our relics. Imagine what we can do when we unleash the full potential of our future." The alien leaders were silent now, their minds racing. The shock of the tank's power still lingered, but now they were forced to consider a far deeper truth. Humanity was not just a young species with a few tricks up its sleeve. Humanity was a force capable of reshaping the galaxy. As the silence stretched on, the alien leaders could no longer ignore the reality before them. They had underestimated humanity once, but they would not make that mistake again. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would be at the center of it. And no one, not even the most powerful alien civilizations, could predict where that change would lead. The fury unleashed. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. The alien leaders, still shaken by the earlier demonstration, now stood on edge, waiting for what would come next. Commander Arnold and Dr. Carter had made their point, but there was a lingering sense of uncertainty. What would humanity do next? Would they escalate the situation further, or would they back down? No one knew for sure. But as the silence stretched on, a subtle shift began to occur. The weight of the moment grew heavier. Commander Arnold stepped toward the control panel again, his eyes focused, his hand resting just above the switches. The tank, which had powered down earlier, stood silent in the background. But even in its stillness, it was impossible to ignore the sheer potential of the machine. Every alien in the room could feel it, a sense that the dormant beast within the tank could awaken at any moment. Arnold's hand hovered over the controls, and for a moment, the room held its breath. The alien representatives watched, tense and uncertain. Would humanity unleash the tank's fury once again? Then, without warning, the room was shaken by a deep, rumbling sound. It came from the tank. The floor trembled, and the air seemed to vibrate with a low hum as the ancient machine powered back to life. The once silent beast roared with mechanical strength, its massive engines firing up, and its weapon systems flickered to life. The alien leaders watched in stunned silence as the tank rose from its dormant position, its hulking frame looming ominously over them. Dr. Carter stepped forward, a small smile crossing her face. "This is just a glimpse of what humanity is capable of," she said, her voice steady but filled with an undeniable confidence. The tank's turret swung smoothly into place, its targeting systems locking onto a distant target. The alien leaders exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen the power of the tank once before, but now, with the fury unleashed in full force, they were beginning to grasp the full extent of the threat that humanity posed. Krovac, the Zorlak leader, was the first to speak, though his voice trembled slightly. What is this?" he asked, unable to hide the fear that had crept into his tone. "Is this how you plan to fight? To wipe out entire fleets with this relic?" Commander Arnold met his gaze. "This relic, as you call it, is just the beginning," he said, his voice low and purposeful. "Humanity has far more at its disposal than this ancient war machine. But make no mistake, we will use whatever it takes to protect ourselves." The tank's weapon system powered up, and with a deafening sound, it fired a single shot. The blast tore through the air, and the room shook as the beam struck its target, a holographic projection of a distant planet. The explosion was spectacular, the energy released in an instant. The alien leaders flinched, their eyes wide as they witnessed the full force of humanity's weaponry. The holographic planet erupted in a cascade of explosions, its surface disintegrating in seconds. The blast was a display of raw power, a testament to the destructive force of the tank. "This is just a simulation," Dr. Carter said, her tone calm but tinged with a hint of pride. "Imagine what it could do on a real battlefield." The silence that followed was deafening. The alien leaders stood frozen, unable to process what they had just seen. The power of the tank was overwhelming, but it was more than that. It was a symbol of humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and willingness to fight for survival. The tank was not just a weapon. It was a message. Commander Arnold's words echoed in the stillness. "We will not be cowed, not by anyone. This is our strength, and we will defend it with everything we have." For the first time, the alien leaders began to realize that they had underestimated humanity. What had once been seen as a primitive, fragile species was now revealed to be a force capable of unleashing unimaginable destruction. And if humanity was willing to wield such power, what would stop them from using it? The silence continued to stretch, broken only by the hum of the tank systems and the occasional shifting of feet. But in that moment, a single truth became clear. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The galaxy would have to reckon with them. Krovac was the first to break the silence, though his voice was much quieter than before. We underestimated you," he said, his words hesitant, as if unsure whether he should even say them aloud. Commander Arnold didn't respond immediately. He let Krovac's admission hang in the air, a small victory in itself. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady. "Underestimating us was your mistake, and now you must decide how you will move forward." The alien leaders were no longer so certain of their superiority. The balance of power had shifted. Humanity had shown them a glimpse of its strength, and that was enough to make even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy rethink their assumptions. For the first time in this tense meeting, the future seemed uncertain. The galaxy, once divided by ancient rivalries and unchallenged power structures, was now confronted with the reality that humanity was not just a force to be reckoned with. They were a force that could change everything. The question was no longer whether humanity would fight back. It was whether the rest of the galaxy would be prepared for what came next. The reckoning. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the weight of the moment pressing down on every participant in the room. The once confident and dismissive alien leaders now stood in uneasy silence, their eyes flickering between one another. The demonstration of humanity's power, the unleashing of the Relic tank's fury, had shaken them to their core. What they had once considered a joke, humanity's so-called ancient war machine, was now something to be feared. Krovak, the Zorlak leader, was the first to break the silence. His voice was a mixture of disbelief and genuine concern. How can you possess such power? Such destruction? He stammered, his earlier bravado gone, replaced by a quiet awe. The other alien leaders, still processing the implications, exchanged nervous glances. The fear was palpable. Commander Arnold stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "This isn't just about the tank," he said. "This is about humanity's capacity for innovation, for survival, and for defending what we hold dear. We may have a relatively short history in comparison to yours, but we have something you've never had to reckon with before: determination." Dr. Carter, standing beside Arnold, nodded in agreement. Humanity's power isn't just in the weapons we build, but in the spirit that drives us. And as you've just seen, we will use whatever we have at our disposal to protect ourselves. The room fell into silence once more, but it wasn't the awkward, uncomfortable silence of the earlier moments. No, this silence was different. It was the kind of silence that fills the air before a storm, when all the forces are aligning for something far greater than what anyone could predict. As the alien leaders processed the demonstration, a small part of their minds raced to understand the magnitude of what they had witnessed. The explosion caused by the tank had shattered their perceptions of humanity. It wasn't just the power of the weapon. It was the way humans had harnessed such destructive energy with such precision and purpose. The Zorlak leader was still visibly shaken. "We had thought you were weak," Krovak muttered. "But you are not." Commander Arnold met Krovak's gaze with cold intensity. "You never gave us a chance to prove otherwise." The words hung in the air, and the alien leaders seemed to shift uncomfortably, as if for the first time they were truly realizing just how much they had underestimated humanity. In the corner of the room, a low hum began to fill the space. The tank's systems were still powered up, its engines running at full capacity, ready to unleash its power at a moment's notice. And with the current display of human strength fresh in the minds of the galactic leaders, that hum carried a far more ominous weight than it had just hours ago. Krovak spoke again, his voice more measured now, though still tinged with uncertainty. "What do you want from us, Commander Arnold?" The question hung in the air, as if he was trying to grasp the true depth of humanity's intentions. "You have shown us your power, but what is it that you truly seek?" Arnold didn't hesitate. "We seek respect," he said simply. "We seek the right to exist on our terms. You may be older, more advanced, but that doesn't give you the right to dominate us. We are not your pawns to be moved around at will." The words struck like a thunderclap, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. The alien leaders, many of whom had spent centuries or even millennia building empires and controlling weaker species, were now forced to confront the possibility that humanity wouldn't bend to their will. The balance of power had irrevocably shifted, and the truth was undeniable. They could no longer afford to dismiss humanity as a lesser species. The silence was broken by the voice of Elira, a representative of the Vrethan race. She was known for her calm demeanor, but even she could not hide the tremor in her voice. "What do you want us to do?" she asked, her tone cautiously respectful, her eyes studying Arnold intently. Commander Arnold stepped forward, his voice growing stronger with every word. "We want peace," he declared, "but we will not allow ourselves to be enslaved, manipulated, or destroyed. We will fight for our future, for our children, for the right to exist as we see fit. You may have once believed we were insignificant, but after today, I hope you see us for what we are, a species willing to do whatever it takes to defend our home." Dr. Carter, standing beside Arnold, added, "We do not seek war, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves if you give us no other choice." The alien leaders exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Arnold's words sinking in. Humanity had shown them its strength, its resolve, and its capacity for unimaginable destruction. And now they had to decide. Would they continue to underestimate the humans, or would they recognize that this was a species that could no longer be ignored? Krovac was the first to speak again, his voice measured, though the fear was still present. "Perhaps we have misjudged you," he said, "but we are not without our own strength. We, too, have weapons capable of destroying entire worlds." Commander Arnold's gaze never wavered. "Let's hope we never have to test that theory," he said, his tone calm, but there was a fire behind his words. The stage was set. The galactic powers had seen what humanity could do, and now they had to decide how they would respond. Would they respect the new balance of power, or would they seek to challenge humanity's strength? The coming days would decide the fate of the galaxy and humanity's place within it. The future of the galaxy. The tension in the room had reached a breaking point. The alien leaders, once so confident in their superiority, were now deeply uncertain. They had witnessed humanity's power firsthand, and the implications of that demonstration were still reverberating throughout the chamber. The Relic tank, a symbol of humanity's past, had awakened a new fear in them, fear of what humanity could achieve when cornered. Krovac, the Zorlak leader, was the first to speak. His voice had lost much of its earlier force, replaced by a tone of reluctant respect. "We have seen your strength," he said, his words careful, as though choosing each one with deliberate thought. "But strength is not enough to rule the galaxy. We have lasted as long as we have because of more than just power. We have wisdom, strategy, and alliances that span the stars." Commander Arnold stepped forward, his eyes locking onto Krovac's. "Wisdom and strategy mean nothing when you've underestimated your enemies," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "Humanity might not have the centuries of experience you possess, but we have something far more dangerous: the will to survive. And when we are pushed, we will fight back with everything we have." Dr. Carter, standing beside Arnold, added, "The Relic tank was just a glimpse of our potential. We may have history on our side, but we also have something that none of you do: adaptability. When we face obstacles, we overcome them. When we are faced with destruction, we rebuild stronger. That is the true power of humanity." The room was still, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the tank's engines in the background. The alien leaders exchanged glances, the realization settling in that humanity was no longer the easy target they had once thought it to be. The once dismissed Relic tank was now a symbol of the human spirit, unpredictable, resilient, and capable of overcoming even the greatest odds. Ylira, the Vrethin representative, spoke up next, her voice thoughtful. "We have underestimated you," she admitted, her tone sincere. "Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our approach to your species. We have always believed that the galaxy is meant to be ruled by those who have the most power, but perhaps there is more to survival than just strength." Arnold nodded. "Exactly," he said. "It's not about domination. It's about coexistence. We've fought our battles and faced our challenges. We have earned our place in this galaxy. We are not here to destroy, but to protect what is ours and to ensure our future. If that means standing up to those who would try to control us, then so be it." The alien leaders were silent, clearly weighing Arnold's words. This was a turning point, a moment where the balance of power in the galaxy could shift forever. They had seen the destruction humanity was capable of, but they also had witnessed its capacity for resilience and unity. Humanity was not a species to be ignored, not anymore. Krovac finally spoke, his voice more measured now. "Perhaps it is time for a new approach," he said. "We have long seen ourselves as the rightful rulers of this galaxy, but we have overlooked the potential of others. Perhaps, instead of seeking to dominate, we can find a way to cooperate with humanity. There is strength in unity, after all." The room was still. It was a proposal that no one had expected. especially not after the events of the day. But it was a sign that humanity's power, its unwillingness to bow down to anyone, had forced the galactic powers to reconsider their stance. For the first time, they were willing to entertain the possibility of cooperation. Dr. Carter was the first to respond, her voice calm but firm. "We are open to cooperation," she said. "But make no mistake, we will never be subjugated. We will never be seen as less than any other species. If you wish to work with us, it must be as equals." Krovac nodded slowly. "Understood," he said. "Perhaps this is the beginning of a new chapter for the galaxy. One where strength is balanced with understanding. One where cooperation, rather than domination, is the path forward." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their significance. The galaxy had just witnessed the rise of humanity as a power to be reckoned with. The Relic tank was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a symbol of humanity's future, a future where strength was not measured by the ability to destroy, but by the ability to survive, adapt, and thrive. As the alien leaders began to discuss the details of this newfound cooperation, Arnold and Carter exchanged a look. They had done it. Humanity had stood its ground, not through brute force alone, but through the sheer determination to protect its future. The room, once filled with uncertainty and fear, was now filled with the quiet buzz of negotiation. It was the beginning of something new, a new era for humanity in the galaxy. The storm that had once seemed inevitable was now dissipating, replaced by the possibility of peace. And as Commander Arnold looked out at the alien leaders, he knew that humanity had earned its place among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same again.